Good morning, friends. We have been talking about the historical development of the field of literary theory and criticism. We have already talked about different periods in the history of the development of literary criticism, wherein we talked about classical criticism of Greek and Roman criticism, and then we talked about the Middle Ages, Renaissance, Neoclassical, then Romantic criticism, Victorian criticism, the criticism of late 19th and early 20th century. And then we went on talking about the modern criticism of 20th century, in which I refer to formalism, psychological criticism, etc. In this lecture, I shall talk about mythological criticism, or mythological criticism, which can also be referred to as archetypal or myth criticism. Now, let's try to understand what mythological criticism is. We need to understand that mythological criticism or archetypal myth criticism is not all about mythology only. It is not simply the study of mythology. It is rather about the universal elements of human life that are common in all cultures. So it does not simply talk about mythology, rather it talks about the universal elements of human life, which are very common. I mean, the universal elements like love, passion, feelings, emotions, anger, family relationship, etc., are such universal elements which are common in all cultures. When we talk about mythology, like ancient mythology, literature is a window to creating meaning for human life. If we read mythological stories of the ancient time, you will understand that through these mythological stories, those narrators, writers try to create the window for human life. In other words, we understand that stories make us feel like our lives are more significant. Through stories, we understand the value of our lives. When we talk about the mythological theory of criticism, the central aspect of this theory is archetypes. I'm sure that we have understood this term already while talking about the literary terms and concepts. Still, we shall have a quick look at the term archetypes. Archetypes are those universal elements present in the literature of all culture. Means they are the universal elements which are present in the literature of all cultures. And mythological criticism seeks to understand how the story constructs meaning in human existence through these archetypes. Archetypal criticism or mythological criticism is associated to the works of C.G. Jung and Joseph Campbell, and even to myth itself. And some of the major figures of this particular school of criticism are Robert Graves, Francis Ferguson, Philip Wheelwright, Leslie Fiedler, Northrop Frye, Maud Bodkin, and G. Wilson Knight. These critics of mythological criticism or archetypal criticism view the genre and individual plot patterns of literature. They talk about the type of literature, at the same time they talk about the plot patterns of literature. Means plot patterns of each genre, like novel, drama, poetry, etc. So they view the genre and individual plot patterns of literature, including highly sophisticated and realistic verse, like what we call Milton Paradise Lost or all other such great epics, classical epics of the world. And they try to understand the recurrences of certain archetypes. Archetypes, as I said, the universal elements in the literature of all cultures. And essential myth formula is also talked about. Now, let's try to understand the meaning of the term archetypes with reference to C.J. Jung. For C.J. Jung, who is well known for his psychological and mythological criticism, archetypes are primordial images. Archetypes are kind of psychic residue of repeated types of experience in the lives of very ancient ancestors, which are inherited in the collective unconscious of the human race. Now, we need to be familiar with the terms like primordial images, the psychic residue, and collective unconscious. While talking about psychological criticism, we had referred to Sigmund Freud, who talks about the conscious, unconscious, and subconscious mind. He talks about what we understood as id, ego, and superego, while C.J. Jung talks about collective unconsciousness. Unconscious means, as I referred to, unconscious is your ego. I'm sorry, id, and that is individual unconscious, while Jung talks about the collective unconscious, the, the unconscious state of mind of the society together. At the same time, he refers to primordial. Primordial means the images or the experiences which were prior to our civilized society, when man was not civilized. At the same time, the psychic residue refers to our memory. Residue is memory, a storehouse, and psychic residue is a kind of storehouse of our experiences, feelings, wishes, etc. So, by talking about these terms, means we understand that all types of experiences in the lives of very ancient ancestors, primordial man, are inherited in our collective unconscious. We have inherited all these experiences from our collective unconscious, means our ancient ancestors. And these experiences are expressed in myths, religion, dreams, and our private fantasies, and also in the works of literature. So, in simple words, we understand that all these mythological religious stories are the expressions of the repeated types of experiences in the lives of our ancient ancestors, which we have inherited in the collective unconscious. That is, collective is common to all. And some examples of archetypes include water, sun, moon, colors, circles, the great mother, wild old man, etc. In almost all cultures, you come across the references to these things. We come across water as life and sun and moon. So there are stories about the sun, moon, then we talk about different colors and their significance. At the same time, circles are very common in every culture, and even we talk about the greatness of mother, and there are stories of wise old man. So, in terms of archetypal criticism, the color white might be associated with innocence or could signify death or the supernatural, whereas black color is associated with the kind of what we call darkness, or uh, it may signify the bad omen, etc. Let's try to understand the key terms from this field. The first term that we should understand in with reference to archetypal or mythological criticism is anima. Anima is a feminine aspect. It refers to the inner feminine part of the male personality or a man's image of a woman. Means whatever, every man has a woman in himself. So that inner feminine part of the male personality is referred to as anima. At the same time, whatever image a man has about a woman is anima. And then another term is animus. It is exactly opposite to anima. It is a male aspect, an inner masculine part of the female personality or woman's image of man. So every woman has a man in herself. That's what we can understand. Further, we talked about archetype is the key term from this field of criticism, a branch of criticism. Archetype is a typical or recurring image. Recurring means something occurs again and again, or character, narrative design, theme, or other literary phenomena that has been in literature from the beginning, and it appears regularly. So Northrop Frye sees archetypes as recurring patterns in literature. In contrast, Jung views archetype as primal, ancient images, experiences that we have inherited from our ancestors. And the term collective unconscious is a set of primal memories common to the human race, so which exists below each person's conscious mind. And another term from this criticism is persona. Persona is the image we present to the world, and shadow is yet another key term. Shadow stands for darker, sometimes hidden, opposed deliberately or unconsciously, elements of a person's psyche. Now let's have a quick look at some of the examples of the most famous archetypes. The archetype of hero is very common across all cultures. So hero stories have certain elements in common. It means heroes generally start out in ordinary circumstances. They are born in a very poor family, or they do not have what we call the favorable conditions. So these are called to adventure, and in the end must confront their darkest fear in a conflict that deeply transforms the hero. Hero confronts the villain, and then he understands the meaning of life, and then a transformation takes place in his personality. Then the archetype of warrior is again one more common uh, ar- archetype that we come across every culture. So the warrior is the man with a plan. He is armed with a particular set of skills and the sheer force of their will. The hero will conquer the enemy and carry the day. So these are the things. And this warrior is supposed to have the following qualities: strength, weaknesses, desires, are some more archetypes. So strengths, the hero or the warrior is supposed to have courage, strength of it in terms of physical or mental abilities. Weakness, the hero or the warrior has a weakness which can be overconfidence or ego and desires to save the day and prove their worth. And examples of these warriors are hero are Hercules, Odysseus, Aragorn from Lord of the Rings, and any other Tom Cruise character or any other hero or a heroine from a typical Hollywood, Bollywood movies are the examples of archetypes.